Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 349. We're doing our Week 12 NFL picks against the spread. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you? And how's your Week 11?
I'm doing great. My week 11 was very bad. I went a cool 5-10 against the spread. We were on a lot of opposite sides last week, so I think we kind of split the difference on them a bit. But the scales definitely tipped in your favor last week. We switched on to a couple picks. We got in trouble with that Chargers pick where we got screwed out of that cover. I think they were winning they were covering most of the game, and then they just collapsed down the stretch. The block punt, a bad interception where Herbert just basically threw it into the dude's helmet. So that one was the most frustrating one of the week. But I have a lot of other stuff to clean up. I like this slate this week, though. I think there's some pretty good values, and I have a feeling we're going to be on the same side in more of them than we were last week. So maybe we'll go 15 for 15 in agreement for the first time.
That would be nice. I think our record's 14.
Yep.
But okay, so I went 7-8 last week, hit the pick of the month, but there were some frustrating losses. There were a lot of misleading results. I thought, like you mentioned, the Chargers game. The Chargers should have covered that spread. Like they had the block punt, then the interception that popped up in the air like a mile. It was just like it felt like it was in the air for like 10 seconds. I even thought like, hey, where'd the ball go? It finally came down to the Steelers' arms. I thought the Jets-Dolphins game last week was misleading. There was even yardage. The Jets had scoreless drives and at the 5, the 22, and the 36. So like that could have even a field goal covers or at least pushes that spread. I think Cleveland, Detroit. Cleveland I thought outplayed Detroit by a large margin, but there was that one interception and that long run, and that basically allowed Detroit to cover. And then you had Baltimore with Lamar Jackson being out. Like
Yep.
Friday, he was not even on the injury report, and then he ended up playing. So it's a very strange week. I like this card as well. So I think we're going to bounce back. Before we get to the Thursday games, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. All that would help us out a lot. Comment right now if you want. We'll get to the questions later. And we have a link to the merch store in the description. So we have 3 Thanksgiving games as usual. The first one, this is going to be barn burner here. The Bears at the Lions. This line opened up Bears minus 3.5. Then it went down to 3 upon hearing news that Jared Goff might play. He's questionable. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I'm leaning the Lions. I don't really think I want to bet this one because both these teams are really, really bad. But the reason I'm leaning the Lions right now is because Matt Nagy, there are rumors that he might get fired after this game. There's like a lot of buzz out there. I think he's definitely not surviving the season because the whole goal coming in this year was 2 things. They need to progress as a team and, get into like double-digit wins and stop having these 8-8 seasons, which they were going to anyway because it was a 17-game season. But that's not the point here. But the other thing was the ownership group was really looking for improved quarterback play. That hasn't come. Justin Fields has had some good moments, but his best game came when Matt Nagy wasn't even there. Against the 49ers, they actually used his legs and got him outside of the pocket. And I just think they haven't done enough to warrant Nagy sticking around. So if they're going to fire him in season, which would be the first time in the 101-year history of the Bears that they would do that, it would be after this game. So he could be a complete lame duck here. The players seem to have quit on him, according to the latest scuttlebutt out of Chicago. And meanwhile, I think Detroit, they're inching closer and closer to getting a win under Dan Campbell. I think they're going to want to avoid going winless. This is one of their 2 best opportunities remaining to get a win the rest of the way. The Falcons represent the other. So I think I'm okay trusting Detroit at +3 because I think this probably ends up being a low-scoring, close game. But at the same time, I don't want to bet on Jared Goff coming off of an injury, coming back and playing well. It's not like he was playing well before the injury anyway. So, and we've seen, quarterbacks struggle coming off of injuries in their first game back this year. So I'm a no bet on this one, but I'm picking the Lions for office pool purposes. I just think they look like the right side to me, unless they're dead wrong about what's going on in Chicago. But I just don't have a good feeling about Matt Nagy.
Yeah, I think you said it perfectly. Like every aspect of this game. I initially was going to be on the Bears. before the news that Jared Goff would play just as a fade of Tim Boyle, who was just awful last week. Like, he's so lucky he didn't throw 5 interceptions. There's so many drop picks. But Jared Goff's going to play. We don't know if he's going to be 100%, so it's tough to bet the Lions. But right now, I think it's even more difficult to bet the Bears because, like you said, the Bears might be distracted by Matt Nagy. He's a lame duck coach. So the players, I don't think they're going to be focused for this game, especially considering that they already beat the Lions earlier in the year. So I think the Bears are going to be flat. So I don't want to bet a 3-point favorite on the road who's going to be flat, even against the Lions. Like, they could just lose. But then again, the Bears could be flat and the Lions could just kill themselves with mistakes like they have all year. And the Bears could somehow win by a touchdown, like just by accident. And then Matt Nagy's fired anyway. So I feel like that can happen as well. But I'm going to be in the Lions with you. I don't see myself betting in this game at all unless there's like a surprise injury during warm-ups or something. But right now I'm going to stay off this game.
Yeah, if Tim Boyle were playing, I probably would join you on the Bears just because he looked terrible. I'm kind of surprised he didn't at any point get benched for David Blau because Blau has looked at least decent on occasion. I know he's not phenomenal at all either, but I think the Lions are the right side right now. There's just no motivation for the Bears in this one. If they've quit on Nagy, why do you care about beating the Lions? And for the Lions, like, they have every reason to want to win a game. And I think Dan Campbell will get a little desperate if this is close late. And I could see that paying off.
Yeah, what are they, like 2% to make the playoffs, like, or 3%? Like,
yeah,
like they know they're not going to try. Like, they have no reason to try hard for this coach at all. So we've seen teams with lame duck coaches quit on their on their coach before. So I think it's going to happen again. We have a question from Barron's 900. When do you guys suggest buying points? Would you buy down to Bears -2.5 or up to Lions +3.5 here? So, well, we're not going to do that because we're not betting this game. But like, if we were, just hypothetically. I would do it if you could get -125 or less. -130 is kind of it's like on the borderline. I would not go over -130, but definitely -125 or less because 3 is the greatest key number in football, and especially in a low scoring game, which you think this is going to be. I would definitely do that for 3. And then 6 and 7 to a lesser extent, like -120 definitely for 6 and 7, not -125 for those.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I would buy Lions +3.5 at the 125 in this game because I very much see this being like a 13-10 or 17-14 type game. So I like it where we would be getting the little hook on the end of the Lions. And I like doing it with the underdog too because then you just protect both field goal results. You win with that.
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, 3, 6, and 7 are the only numbers I would ever pay for. All right. So we have the second game here, the Raiders at the Cowboys. A lot of line movement here. This line opened up 7, went up to 7.5, and then the Sharps bet it down to 7, and then it popped up to 8. I think public money took it to 8, and then the Sharps bet it down to 7.5 again. So it looks like the Sharps on the Raiders, public's on the Cowboys. Who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised the public are on the Cowboys. I'm with the Sharps here. This just seems like too much to give Dallas with what they've been missing. I know we don't know if CeeDee Lamb's going to play or not. It seems like he actually has a chance, which is absurd to me. I thought for sure he was not going to be able to play, but they're going to be without Amari Cooper. I know Tyron Smith is coming back, so that'll be a boost to Dak. But without Amari Cooper in his career, Dak Prescott has struggled a lot. I think he averages like 70 fewer passing yards per game when he's without Cooper. And granted, that sample size is small in recent years. You have to go back to, I think, Cooper's first year with the Raiders when he was traded in and look at the difference between Prescott before Cooper and Prescott after Cooper to see like a real significant sample size. But the fact of the matter is the team without its top receiver and another receiver banged up is not an appealing option, even against a team like the Raiders that hasn't been playing well and is reeling a bit lately. Because if Cooper is out, CeeDee Lamb plays, you're still going to have Casey Hayward guarding Lamb. So that's going to take away one of Prescott's top weapons. His other weapon's going to be unavailable. So you're banking on Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson and Dalton Schultz making a lot of plays in this game, which they can, but I just don't think the passing game is going to be as strong there. I think the Raiders are going to find a way to move the ball on the Cowboys defense. I know that they looked like they got crushed last week against the Bengals, but that was a heck of a lot closer than the final score indicates. There were some really bad turnovers in that game for the Raiders late that made the score get out of control, but they were trailing by only 3 in the fourth quarter, I think. So people are looking at that like, oh, they got blown out by the Bengals. They'll get blown out by the Cowboys. Not so fast is what I would say to that. I like this less with Tyron Smith playing just because Prescott splits with and without Tyron Smith are insane. Like he's just so much better with Tyron Smith, but we don't know if Smith's going to be fully 100%. That's my one concern. And he's going up against a couple good pass rushers and Max Crosby and Unique Ngakoue. So if he's even like a titch below where he needs to be, there still might be some pressure on Prescott. So we're getting 7.5 here. I like the Raiders to keep this closer than people think. I think this is going to be another lower scoring game than what people are anticipating. I think a lot of people are like, oh, the Cowboys are going to drop like 31, 35 points on the Raiders. I think this ends up being like a 24-20, 24-17 type game. So again, I'm going to take the underdog here. I think the Raiders will be ready for this one. They haven't been ready for a game in a while. It feels like they've been kind of on an emotional low, but I think they're going to get amped up to play in this spot and kind of have an opportunity to play spoiler after a few weeks.
Yeah, it feels like the Raiders have had 2 misleading games recently. You mentioned the Bengals. They had 4 possessions in Cincinnati territory that scored 0 points. So that game could have been a lot closer, maybe even a Raiders win, even though it was a 32-13 game. And then the week before against the Chiefs, remember Deshaun Jackson had that fumble. If he scores a touchdown, that's a close game. Suddenly he doesn't, and then things just fall apart for the Raiders. But that was a tight game for a while. So you have this high spread here that's inflated. I think the advanced spread was -7, so we're crossing a key number to go into 7.5. We could see the public continue to bet Dallas. I'm sure they'll do that, and maybe this line will go back up to 8, maybe even higher. And so I'm going to like the Raiders even more there. If CeeDee Lamb plays, I'll still be on the Raiders. I just don't know if I'm going to bet them because they'll at least have that weapon. But if Lamb doesn't play and they don't have Lamb and Cooper, their offense is just going to be too limited, and I'm going to be betting the Raiders. So I'm definitely going to be on Vegas. I just don't know if I'm going to bet this game yet.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. The thing that I always find interesting, the Cowboys always play back-to-back Thursday games. They play the Thanksgiving game, and then the NFL schedules them for Thursday Night Football the next week because they want them on Thursday Night Football. Fox does. So, in my head, I'm like, you're not getting the mini bye after this week. It's coming next week. So I would be cautious with Lamb here if I was the Cowboys. That's the thing that I worry about. Like, why would you rush him back from a concussion? I know you need to win games, but you're ahead in the division race, and this is an out-of-conference game. So I tend to take this scenario a little bit more conservatively, especially when it comes to head injuries. But if CeeDee Lamb plays, I have it down as 1 unit if he's in. If he's out, it probably goes up to 2 units. I may go down to a half unit, though, if he plays, and I'm like, get scared enough of betting the Raiders because they burned me like for the last 3 years. So we'll see what happens. But I'm glad we're on the same side here because when I first saw this line, I was like, this is way too high.
Yeah, definitely way too high. It's funny that you mentioned the Cowboys are always on the following Thursday, which is what the NFL should do anyway, right? Like not schedule teams on 4 days rest to play, or 3 days rest really to play on Thursday. Do you think this is a weird question? Do you think at any point in our lifetime, do you think we'll see the Lions play the following Thursday? Because that would mean the Lions are the better team than Dallas.
Man, I don't know. You know what I could see? I could see them playing against Dallas. I could see because they always have one of the Thanksgiving teams plays Dallas is usually what they do. They schedule it for that to happen. So maybe if there's a year where Detroit's supposed to play Dallas, they'll end up both playing Thanksgiving and both playing Thursday night the following week. But I don't know if it's going to be because the Lions are good enough. I feel like they're eventually going to get there. Like I believe in Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. I think Dan Campbell's going to turn this thing around. I know it looks bleak now, but this was a long rebuild. But I would give it a few years and we'll see if I come back and I'm like, I was wrong about that.
Yeah, I've been watching football since 1992, and it's never been the case. So yep. It's kind of crazy. All right, so we have the third game, the Bills at the Saints. The Bills open up -4.5. It's popped up to -6. Tons of action on the Bills. I think both pro and casual money on the Bills. Alvin Kamara's out. We don't know about Mark Ingram. And then Taron Armstead's also questioned. Ryan Ramczyk's out. So a lot of injury questions for the Saints. The Bills coming off that ugly loss to the Colts. So do you think they bounce back?
I do. I'm on the Bills here. I know the line's moved and it's gone up to a key number, so that's not exactly ideal, but I think that's a proper adjustment. When you look at how the Saints have played, Trevor Siemian at quarterback as a starter has not worked out, and he just doesn't have any weapons around him. Kamara's out, as you mentioned. Mark Ingram's going to be questionable, so he might play, but he's not going to be 100%. They're going to be missing their right tackle. They're already missing Andrews Pete, too, who, he's not the greatest offensive lineman in the world, but you're still talking about being down at least 2, possibly 3 starters, or you're down 2 starters, and if Armstead plays, he might not be 100%. The Bills have a good defense for the most part. I know they were just gashed by Jonathan Taylor, but they're going to want to bounce back from that embarrassing performance, both on offense and defense. I know it's tough to do that on a short week. We've seen the Bills play well this year. They've just been really inconsistent of late, and that's been their problem. But I think they're going to be amped up for this one. I think they're going to find a way to win and win big. I just don't see New Orleans finding a way to stay in this game. I mean, Tre'Davious White can take away their top weapon, whoever that may be, but they're without Michael Thomas and Adam Troutman. So Marquez Callaway, Traquan Smith, and Deontay Harris, your top 3 receivers. It's just, there's just not enough talent on this offense without Kamara to do anything against a defense like the Bills, especially coming off of such a poor performance where they're going to want to bounce back. So I'm going to be on the Bills here. I know that betting the Saints as a home underdog has been a losing strategy in the past. In the last 10 years, they're 8-3 as a home dog, but this is not your father's Saints team, is how I would put it. Drew Brees isn't here. Jameis Winston's not even here. Taysom Hill, I don't know where he is, but he's getting paid a lot of money to do nothing right now. I mean, I would give him a chance over Simeon just to see what he can do if he's healthy. But I mean, things are getting weird in New Orleans. We knew this was going to happen post Drew Brees, so I'm just gonna trust the better quarterback coming off of an embarrassing loss and a solid enough defense.
Yeah, the Taysom Hill contract was so weird. My friend Bodyburner texted me. He's like, "Do you think the Saints will give me $5 million to be the third string quarterback?" And I'm like, "Why are you selling yourself short? You can get $10 million from them just based on this contract." I like the Bills as well. This is my favorite side on Thanksgiving. I love betting good teams coming off embarrassing losses. And I think everyone's overreacting to that Indianapolis defeat. I feel like the Bills just didn't show up. It was like rainy, so Josh Allen couldn't throw as well. It was windy. And then the Bills they didn't look like they really wanted to stop Jonathan Taylor with the game coming up in 4 days. It's not a conference game, but it's a more high profile game being on national TV, standalone game on Thanksgiving night. Everyone's going to be watching them. I know they play on Thanksgiving a couple years ago against Dallas, but playing in the night game carries its own prestige. And so I think they're going to be more hyped for this game. I think they match up very well against the Saints, especially if the Saints are missing Teron Armstead. The Bills have the number 1 pressure defense in the NFL. And if the Saints are missing 3 offensive linemen, Armstead, Ramczyk, and then Andrews Pete, the Bills are going to put a ton of pressure on Simeon, who's not going to have Alvin Kamara as someone to throw to out of the backfield, which is a big problem. They had that issue against the Eagles last week, and they scored 7 points before garbage time, and that 7 points came on the Miles Sanders fumble at the 6-yard line. So I think this is a huge mismatch. The Saints are a tanking team. They lost to Atlanta a few weeks ago, and we've seen Atlanta since. It just shows how bad the Saints are without some of their weapons. I think the Bills win this one easily.
Yeah, well, we're 3 for 3 going through Thanksgiving, so I think that's a good sign and a good start.
Yeah, definitely. So we have 12 more to go. So we're 3 for 3. Let's see what happens with this next one. So we move on to Sunday. The Titans at the Patriots. It looks like there's a lot of money on the Patriots. This line opened up Patriots minus 5.5. It's up to 7 already. So who do you like here?
Yeah, I like the Titans here quite a bit. I know the Patriots have been excellent in recent weeks. I don't like betting against them with how they're playing, but this line is just – it's moving through key numbers and it's getting pretty high. And I just don't like it from that standpoint. I think the Patriots are due to have a close game at some point soon. They've been blowing people out of the water. I mean, they just shut out Atlanta. They crushed Cleveland. And I know they have extra time to prepare for this one, but at the same time, they could be looking ahead a little bit. They've got a huge game coming up on Monday Night Football the week after this game with the Bills. So I think they might be looking ahead to that one because that's going to be the first one that's like a really, really big stepping stone, milestone for them in the divisional race, depending on what happens with the Bills and the Patriots this week. Meanwhile, the Titans, they were distracted last week. They lost to the Texans, so that's why people don't want to bet on them right now. And I know that they're worse than they were without Derrick Henry, but they can still move the ball enough. And Mike Vrabel is really good at getting this team to perform as an underdog, especially on defense. I think they're going to be able to find a way to get a little bit of pressure on Mac Jones and force him into some mistakes, because as good as Mac Jones has been this year, when he has to make downfield plays or if he gets out of rhythm, he can struggle. And this Tennessee defense has shown a knack for forcing tough turnovers. So I think if they can use Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons to generate some interior pressure, that's the way to get to Mac Jones. That's the way to get to a lot of the less mobile quarterbacks in the league, but that's the number one way for Jones. I know the Titans are going to have to find a way to generate some offense. I know A.J. Brown might be out of this game in addition to Julio Jones and Derrick Henry. So you're talking about a decimated offense. But I think that they'll find a way to do it. I think Mike Vrabel will keep this thing close. And if not, there might be back towards cover potential. So I'm going to stick with the Titans here at +7. They've just been so good against the spread, especially as an underdog. 5-0 as underdogs this year, which is crazy to me. So I know that trend may not mean much, but I think from a motivational standpoint, it works for Vrabel to be like, hey, guys, we're being doubted right now big time against a team that we can beat. So I'm interested to see how this game plays out, but I'll be on the Titans.
Yeah, me too. So we're 4 for 4. Mike Vrabel is, I think, 19-11 against the spread as an underdog. So, that tends to favor him here. The advanced spread on this game was Patriots -3. So this has moved 4 points through 3, 4, 6, and 7, like the 4 primary key numbers that you're looking for in the NFL. That's insane to me. And it moved. Why? Because, the Patriots beat the Falcons last week. Like, who cares? The Falcons are terrible. And that wasn't even that should have been a closer game because the Falcons were 0 for 2 in the red zone. Scored no points in the red zone. And then the Titans lost to Houston. Like you said, they were looking ahead to this game. They were flat, and they had 5 turnovers. They actually outgained Houston 420 to 190. So that was, the Titans should not have lost that game. Really, I feel like I rewatched that game, and if Tannehill just settled for field goals instead of turning the ball over in the red zone, they would have won outright. They wouldn't have covered, but they would have won outright. And so this line would not be 7 if that were the case. If they had won by 3, maybe this line's 6 or whatever. It's definitely not 7. So yeah, I think you make a great point about Mac Jones seeing pressure. Mac Jones has played some defenses recently that don't pressure him. The Falcons and the Jets. The Browns even don't pressure the quarterback that very well. The 2 teams he's played recently that pressure the quarterback well, the Panthers. So they beat the Panthers pretty easily, but Mac Jones did not play that well in that game. And then the Chargers game, the Chargers outgained them, and they averaged 1.7 more yards per play. The reason why the Patriots won is because of the pick 6 by Justin Herbert. So I think this is a tougher matchup for Mac Jones. I think he's going to struggle with the pressure, as you mentioned. And so the Titans are going to hang around in a low-scoring game. And then, like you said, the Patriots are going to be looking ahead to Buffalo. So I love Tennessee. I think they're one of my top plays this week.
Yeah, they're going to be one of mine as well, because the other thing is Mac Jones insulted pie on Thanksgiving weekend, and Matt Judon's been like, I hate mac and cheese. It has no place at Thanksgiving. And I have to say, I've never had mac and cheese at Thanksgiving, but, I like mac and cheese. I would still eat it. So, they're dissing all these Thanksgiving foods, and I feel like Thanksgiving karma is going to come back and get them. Like, if this spread was like all things considered, like more even, I might even lean on the Titans just because of the karma there.
I will say that wasn't on my radar, but now it is. So I was thinking about going 4 units. Now it might be 5 just because of that. The question here: would you drop Sony Michel and pick up Zach Moss? No, I wouldn't pick up Zach Moss. I would try to find someone else. In fact, I think the Bills were saying that Matt Breida was going to see some touches in this game. So if you're playing on DraftKings, I'm going to use Matt Breida in one of my lineups just to, maybe he scores a touchdown or something. He's super cheap, so you can get like better players in your lineup if you use them. So that's what I would do. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's kind of a like-for-like swap for me. It's like you got to back up in Sony Michel, and Zach Moss might get more red zone carries, but the Bills are just such a bad running team that I don't really want anything to do with that running game. I dropped Devin Singletary earlier in the year, and Matt Breida is getting involved, like you said. So I think the best play, as you said, is Matt Breida in DFS, and just let someone else try to figure out the Bills running back situation in year long.
Yeah, the Saints have a top 3 run defense too, so it's not like you're getting a guy in a good matchup. Yeah, like maybe Zach Moss scores a touchdown, sure, but like it's tough to count on that. All right, moving on. The Jets at the Texans. Here's another exciting game. The Texans were -3. Then it was announced that Joe Flacco is going to be out and Zach Wilson will start. The smooth line moved down to -2.5. So who do you like in this game?
Wait, so Joe Flacco was ruled out and Zach Wilson would start and the line moved down? Is that seriously what? That's bizarre to me. I've written yuck. I have no intention of betting this game. I just don't think Houston should be the favorite here, and I hate the idea of backing Zach Wilson. So this is easily my least favorite of the week. I think, right, but like the Texans are technically getting line value from the open, so I could see going that way. I've got the Jets penciled in, but I'm not betting this one, so I want to hear what your thoughts are on this. I have just no interest in this.
I actually like the Jets a lot before Joe Flacco was ruled out because Flacco gave them, a good chance against a Houston defense that's not good, but has Lovie Smith as the coordinator. And we've seen Lovie Smith confuse young quarterbacks before, Trevor Lawrence in week 1, for example. And, he's really going to confuse Zach Wilson. And so Wilson could self-destruct. I think I could see several interceptions, but he wasn't going to confuse Joe Flacco. And I thought Flacco kind of played well last week against the Dolphins. He put them in position to cover. If they, I know he made that mistake in the red zone where he fumbled. He didn't see the blindside pressure at the 5-yard line. If they score a touchdown there, suddenly they're kicking a field goal at the end to tie the game and to go to overtime. And they were even yardage wise with the Dolphins. So I thought like Joe Flacco against this bad Houston defense would be good. And then Houston's missing 3 offensive linemen. And so the Jets, who have some talent up front, they could take advantage of that. So like I said, I was going to bet the Jets with Flacco, but not with Zach Wilson. I can't back Zach Wilson against Lovie Smith. But then again, laying points at Houston is pretty bad. If this were still -3, I would be super confused. Now that's -2.5. I'm gonna be on Houston, but I have no intention of betting this game.
I'm gonna swap over to Houston because I truly did not know that Zach Wilson was gonna start this game, and I just don't get why the line moved out. Like if Zach Wilson had started and it was like, all right, now it's +3.5, then I'd be like, all right, I can deal with that. But the fact that it moved in the other direction is weird to me. Like I get that he started the year as the starting quarterback, but he's been outplayed by Mike White in some weeks. I know White had some bad weeks, but Flacco is definitely better than him last week. So it's a shame that he won't be around this week. But yeah, this game just screams I'm not gonna touch it.
Yeah, I mean, Mike White had that terrible game against Buffalo, but can you imagine how bad Zach Wilson would have been against Buffalo? Like even worse. Man. So yeah, I when I heard that Flacco was out and Wilson would start, I thought, okay, like you, I was like, okay, we're gonna get 3.5. This game's suddenly interesting. Like, do I take the 3.5 or do I still go with Houston? But it went down. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't understand. It's like. People haven't watched Zach Wilson, apparently. I guess he still has hype from the draft. So people are like, oh, he's a young quarterback. He's going to do well. I just don't see it.
Yeah. So I guess we're in agreement now, too. And that's because I was not paying enough attention to this game. I can't believe I really was not honed in on the New York quarterback situation against the Texans.
Yeah, how could you not be? It's where all the talk is this week. All right, moving on. The Eagles at the Giants. The Eagles open up -3.5. It's still -3.5. Of course, we had news with Jason Garrett being fired. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I've got the Giants penciled in right now. I'm not super confident in this one because the Eagles, they're playing at least more consistently than the Giants right now. But these NFC East divisional battles always tend to be close. It always feels like they're decided by a field goal. And I think that the Giants are going to be much better for getting rid of Jason Garrett. The fact that they hired him in the first place never made sense because if I remember that hiring process correctly, Garrett interviewed to be the head coach. They chose Joe Judge, and then I don't know if the front office of the Giants forced Jason Garrett into the OC role for Judge, or if they're like, hey, we want to hire you. Would you consider hiring Jason Garrett? And he was like, all right, if that's going to be an obstacle, I'll do it. But Garrett was terrible. I mean, there was no consistency, no creativity with that offense. It was just, Saquon Barkley had 3 carries in the first half against the Buccaneers. They just had no idea what they were doing on offense. Daniel Jones was under constant duress. and he looks terrible because of it. But, we've seen Daniel Jones at times look good, and I think maybe getting away from Jason Garrett and getting paired with Freddie Kitchens might work out okay for them. Now, I know Kitchens, everyone's going to be like, well, he was a terrible head coach too. There's a difference, though, because he was actually a good offensive coordinator. Baker Mayfield had one of his best seasons under him, and that's why he was promoted to head coach. Didn't work out, but, I think Kitchens still has some upside. Garrett was what he was. Now, my concern for the Giants here, why I don't like them more, is because it's a short week, and I don't know how they'll respond to that type of change, what they'll be able to implement. But Jones has some weapons. Barkley's back. Kadarius Toney's there. Kenny Galladay's playing terribly, but he's there and eventually could possibly do something positive. He really didn't at all on Monday night, but he has talent. So I think they'll find a way to produce, kind of stay close to the Eagles. This reminds me a bit of the Washington game in week 2, where the Giants were expected to do poorly in that, and Washington was expected to blow them out of the water. It was just closer than people thought. So a +3.5, I like the Giants. Not for a huge bet. I've got a 0-1 posted on this unit-wise right now, just because I don't know how they'll respond to a short week offensive coordinator change.
Yeah, we're on the same side. I like the Giants more. I think they're going to do pretty well with the coaching change. We see that a lot. Like, I know it's a short week, like you said, but Freddie Kitchens knows the personnel. I think they're going to adapt to it, and it's not like they have a tough matchup here against the Eagles defense. Eagles defense doesn't generate that much pressure on the quarterback. They don't blitz. In fact, they're one of the least blitzing teams in the NFL. And Daniel Jones really struggles against the blitz, as we saw Monday night against the Buccaneers. So he does. Then if you look at Daniel Jones's stats this year when he's not blitzed versus when he's blitzed, it's a huge disparity. And so I think he's going to do well with this new coach. His weapons are going to be healthier. Saquon Barkley and Saquon Barkley's second game back. Kenny Galladay with another game back. So they're going to be better. I feel like Kitchens is going to find a way to get the ball to Kadarius Toney. And so I like that for the Giants. And meanwhile, you have the Eagles. They're coming off a blowout win. The line has moved up. The advanced spread was -3, and now it's -3.5. I know it's not a big movement, but to move off 3, I think is a big deal, especially in these sort of the NFC East divisional games, which are always close. And the Giants, they aren't as bad as they looked Monday night, just because they were playing one of the elite teams in the NFL. They've been blown out this year 3 times since week 2. Against the Buccaneers, the Rams, and the Cowboys, 3 of the best teams in the NFL. But they've beaten the Raiders, they've beaten the Panthers, they've beaten the Saints. They played close games against Redskins and Chiefs. They can hang around with, the above average teams, like the Eagles, maybe average or above average, whereas they get blown out by the elite teams. And the Eagles are definitely not elite. The Eagles have been blown out by Dallas and Tampa before that weird comeback. So I think this line is too high. I could see this game going either way. I feel like Eagles by 3 and Giants by 3 is the most likely 2 results of this game. So yeah, I like the Giants quite a bit.
Yeah, I can see why you like them. I would just if it wasn't a short week and they had fired Jason Garrett, I'd probably be like, oh man, I love this. But there's just something about coming off a bad loss on a short week. It's just hard to make changes. But, Kitchens might have been planning for 3 weeks, being like, all right, well, Jason Garrett's not lasting to see. He might have some great game plan in place. So I'm interested to see what happens there, because I think the last half of the season, they really need to see what they have in Daniel Jones and see if they can salvage him at this point. So we'll see what Kitchens can do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if he plays better. Here we have a question. Would you trade Elijah Mitchell for Elijah Moore? I would rather have Elijah Mitchell. But, if you're really starved for receiver talent on your fantasy roster, then maybe you make that move. But I would rather have Mitchell than Moore.
I would too. I think Mitchell, when he's healthy, is the top back on that San Francisco offense. Kyle Shanahan's shown a willingness to trust him. And I know he's been banged up a few times, but that finger injury doesn't seem too severe. Shanahan thought he might play last week, and whether that was just coach speak or not, I think he's better. And Elijah Moore is very good too, but I think I prefer the consistent running back.
Yeah, same here. I just noticed, by the way, the Bears moved to -3 +100 at 5 dimes, which is one of the sharper books. So I think that might mean this line is going to sink to 2.5. So if you like the Lions, I would bet them now, even if you have to pay -115 or -120 for the +3. So that's just something I noticed. Maybe it doesn't move, but that's just something I just saw. All right, moving on. The Buccaneers at the Colts. This line opened up Buccaneers -2.5. It's popped up to -3. Looks like sharp money on Tampa. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like Tampa here. I'm with the Sharps. I know we're going through a key number here, but I think Tampa Bay looked so much better last week defensively with Sean Murphy bunting back. And I think they can create problems for Carson Wentz, who has struggled. Jonathan Taylor's been on fire lately. I mean, he had 5 touchdowns against the Bills last week. But the Buccaneers are very good against the run. And I know they didn't have Vita Vea last week, but they still bottled up Saquon Barkley. And I know the Colts have a much, much, much better offensive line than the Giants, but they still have the linebackers, the Buccaneers do, that can track down Taylor more so than what the Bills had without Tremaine Edmonds on the field. So Devin White and Levante David will be able to bottle him up a little more and make Carson Wentz have to make some plays to stay in this game. And I know the Colts defense has been better of late, but they still have some holes. And if anyone could exploit them, it's Tom Brady. And they do not get much pass rush pressure on him or on quarterbacks. So I think Brady's going to have a lot of time to throw and surgically take apart the defense. So a -3, I definitely like the Buccaneers. I think this is a good spot for them. And I think the Colts might be a little bit like basking in the glory of their blowout win over Buffalo. Like they just beat a team that was at one point said to be the best in the AFC, and now they're on the rise again. And, Tampa Bay blew out the Giants, but who cares? It's the Giants. So I think they'll be a little bit more motivated for this. And there's no look ahead on either side. So I'm on the Buccaneers here. I got 1 unit penciled in, could bump it up to 2 if I like it enough.
Yeah, I like the Buccaneers a lot in this game, and we are getting value with the Buccaneers, believe it or not, even though the line moved from -2.5 to 3, because the advanced spread on this game was Buccaneers -3.5, and it moved because it moved the whole point across 3 because of that Indianapolis win over the Bills, and I think, like we were saying before, I think that is very misleading. Like the Bills weren't focused. It was a windy, rainy day. Josh Allen wasn't going to play well in those conditions unless he was scrambling around a lot, which he wasn't going to do because they're playing in 4 days. So I think that's very misleading, and I don't think this line should move at all. In fact, I think this line should have moved up because Tampa Bay is healthier now in the secondary. As you said, they got Sean Murphy bunting back, which is a big deal because their secondary was the weakest part of the roster. And so Tampa's deep run defense, as you said, should stop Jonathan Taylor. Like I still expect Taylor to have some nice runs, but he's not going to get 100 yards. I don't think he's not going to get anywhere near 5 touchdowns. He's probably going to get like 60, 70 yards, maybe a touchdown, but it's not going to be a big game. And so with that in mind, Carson Wentz is going to have to beat this team. And I've seen enough of Carson Wentz this year against good teams. The last time they were playing a good team that was focused against them was Tennessee, and Carson Wentz self-destructed at the end. Feel like that could happen again. Meanwhile, you have Tom Brady going against a defense missing his 2 starting safeties, which is going to be a big advantage for Tampa. So the Colts have been missing their starting 2 safeties for the past 3 games, but the teams they played haven't been able to take advantage of that. In the past 3 games, they played against the Jets, who lost Mike White, in the first quarter, then the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, who's struggling right now, and then the Bills in that windy, rainy game, and Josh Allen wasn't going to beat them that way. So this is the first time that their secondary missing 2 safeties are going to be going against a top passing team. And so I think Tampa's really going to take advantage of that. So I like the Buccaneers a lot. I think they should be able to blow out the Colts.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the spread or the opening line was -3.5. That makes me like this a lot more because we're getting some value here. And Phil's saying the Colts will win that game by 3. This game's a trap. I don't think so. I just don't think the Colts have enough power on offense. Like they have Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, and that's kind of it to me. They have some good other like tertiary options. Like I like Naeem Hines. T.Y. Hilton has been good at times, but they're not consistent enough to get the job done against a good defense with fast linebackers like this. Now, I've been wrong about the Colts a ton this year, so maybe I'll be wrong here, but I think this is a better spot for the Buccaneers. I think this is kind of where Tom Brady is going to get the ball rolling for this team and kind of get on a roll going into the playoffs.
Yeah, the Colts haven't really beaten good teams this year. If you take away that win against Buffalo, which again misleading, the teams they beat this year are the Dolphins, the Texans, the Niners in that monsoon on Sunday night,
Yep.
the Jets, and the Jaguars. Those are their wins this year. Just not impressive at all. In fact, they were outgained by the Jaguars in that game in week. It was a week 10. So I'm not impressed by the Colts at all, and I don't see this as a trap game for Tampa. Like, what are they looking forward to? They have Atlanta next week. Like, they're not going to be focused against the Falcons. So I think Tampa's going to be sharp. They've lost enough games already. I feel like they're going to go on a tear to close out the year.
Agreed.
Okay. So speaking of Atlanta, we have the Falcons at the Jaguars. This line opened up -1. It's popped up to -2 or -2.5. I don't know if this is sharp money. I think this is a lot of public money. The sharps haven't really bet this game. So who do you like here?
Yeah, so I liked Atlanta a lot at -1. I thought they were going to be in good shape there. -2.5, I still like it. It just seems like a good spot for them. I know they've been horrible in recent weeks. Their last 2 games, they've been outscored a combined 68-3. Like, that's just like that's just really horrible, like low level bad stuff there. But the Falcons, they're playing the Jaguars this week, obviously, and Jacksonville fits the profile of teams that Atlanta has beaten so far this year. They've typically beaten up on some of the NFL's worst competition. They've had wins over the Jets, Giants, Dolphins, and Saints. Those are their 4 wins. And 3 of those 4 teams rank in the bottom 8 of Football Outsiders DVOA metric, which, it breaks down the entire season play by play and compares success on each play based on the league average. So it's basically like, how do you compare the league average defensively? Jacksonville ranks 28th, so they're a bottom 5 team. They fit the profile of the Giants, Jets, and Dolphins there. The only high-level team that the Falcons have beaten in terms of DVOA is the Saints. The Saints' defense is good, but their offense is not. So that explains why they won that game. I don't see Jacksonville's defense being able to do enough to stop Matt Ryan. They don't get pressure. They average the 6th fewest sacks per game in the NFL at 1.8 per game. The Jaguars do. Matt Ryan was under a ton of pressure against the Patriots and the Cowboys. And I know his offensive line's not very good, but I think he shouldn't be under as much pressure this game. And he'll be able to get the ball out quicker, get the ball to Kyle Pitts and guys like that. And they'll be able to beat Jacksonville, I think. I'm not like as big on this game at 2.5. Like, I might not bet it, but I still think that this is like the profile of teams that Atlanta beats from a defensive standpoint. And Trevor Lawrence isn't playing well enough that he can necessarily take advantage of the Atlanta defense. So I like them here. If this moves through 3, I probably wouldn't bet it, but I think they're better than Jacksonville.
Yeah, they're like the king of the bad teams. Right? They've beaten all the horrible teams they played, and they've been blown out against all the good teams they played. Jacksonville, obviously one of the worst teams in the NFL, as we saw last week. They were down 17-0 before Lawrence took his 5th snap, which is just insane. It's like I had Jacksonville too, and I think we both had Jacksonville. And it's like, oh man, we lost this right away. It wasn't even close. And so Jacksonville's their pass rush is really good. So like that is one advantage they have in this game. But their defense is so bad against the middle of the field, and we saw that against the Niners last week. They really struggle against running backs coming out of the backfield, and then the tight ends, and that's where Atlanta's strong offensively. They have Kyle Pitts. And they have Cordarrelle Patterson. Like, those are the 2 main weapons. And we think Patterson's going to play. Now, if he's out, maybe I'll change my mind here. But it looks like they're going to have him back. And so that's a big advantage to Atlanta. Atlanta 3-1 against teams with 4 or fewer wins this year. So like I said, they beat all the bad teams. So I like Atlanta here. If this gets up to 3, maybe I'll consider changing this. But yeah, -2 or -2.5, they should be able to cover.
Yeah, it seems like a good spot for them. And I think Matt Ryan, like, I know his team is not good anymore. So it's not like a good teams or good quarterbacks coming off of an embarrassing loss. But I think Matt Ryan has enough pride. And Arthur Smith against the Patriots was just on his head, or just shaking his head back and forth. Like, he looked so mad, and he's had extra time to prepare for a bad team like the Jaguars. So I think they probably put in some serious put the nose to the grindstone here. So I agree. If Cordarrelle Patterson plays, I will like this more. If he does not play, and this line continues to go up, I will probably not bet it. But Atlanta just feels like the red side to me. And you mentioned that they're 3-1 against teams with 4 or fewer wins. Their one loss was to Washington. That was a really close game. I think Washington scored like the go-ahead touchdown on their last drive.
Yeah, so it could easily be they could be undefeated against these bad teams too. I think we've seen that Washington has been better than the record says they are. So we'll get to that later. And with Arthur Smith, I was so frustrated with him with those fullback dives on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1.
Yep.
It's like, come on, man, just like try to come up with a creative play. Like imagine if you're the owner and you hired this guy, and then you see fullback dives in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1 from a supposed offensive genius. It's like, oh man, I'd feel so bad about that.
Yeah, no, as much as I love fullbacks, you got to get a little more creative or just find a way to get the ball on your playmaker's hands like Kyle Pitts. Put him in the backfield to give him a carry. But at the same time, they're missing so many weapons with Calvin Ridley and Patterson out, so I can understand why he might be a bit demoralized.
Yeah. So we are 8 for 8 in agreements. We get to this next game. It is the Panthers at the Dolphins. Sign open up Panthers -1.5. It's up to 2. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Panthers here. I think the Dolphins have been playing better of late, but I don't think they're better than the Panthers right now, a team that now has a decent starting quarterback in Cam Newton. I know we saw the Panthers, and I was wrong about this. You were dead right about the pick of the month, Washington beating the Panthers there. I thought that Carolina was going to come out more amped up for that game, and at least on the defensive side of the ball, and they weren't. Their fans were amped up. Cam Newton played a good game, but they couldn't get the job done. But I think they're going to be able to move the ball much easier on this Dolphins defense. Dolphins are not very good against the run. They allowed Michael Carter and the Jets to run on them pretty successfully last week. I think they averaged 5.7 yards per carry. I don't know. Some of those might have been quarterback scrambles, but that was with Joe Flacco. So if you're letting Joe Flacco scramble for significant yards, that's also a bad thing. But I think as well, even if the Dolphins defense plays well, the Panthers still have a better team than them. I think they find a way to slow down Tua and the Dolphins offense. And this is under 3. So I just like the Panthers here. I think Miami's getting to the territory where they're a bit overrated. People are talking about them as a potential playoff team. And I think they're obviously better than what we thought they were at the beginning of the season when they went 1-7 out of the gate and could have been 0-8. But I don't think they've fully turned the corner. I don't think they have the talent enough to do this, to make this full turnaround. So I'm going to side with the Panthers here. I think McCaffrey is going to really help them get the job done. And so long as Cam Newton doesn't make mistakes and stays healthy, he will be fine as the quarterback here.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins are very overrated right now. So they've won 3 games in a row. The first one was against Houston, where the Texans made a million mistakes, lots of sloppy turnovers by the Texans in that game. The second game was against Baltimore, and that's what everyone remembers, that Thursday night game. But the Ravens were flat in that game, and Lamar Jackson really struggles against the blitz, which the Dolphins blitz a lot. And then the last game against the Jets, as discussed, like that was an evenly matched game yardage wise. It was the Jets just not converting in deep in Dolphins territory that really made it a 7-point game. So those wins I feel like are misleading, and this is a tough spot I think for the Dolphins because their offensive line is so bad. It's like one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And the Panthers produce so much pressure. Like they have one of the top pressure defenses in the NFL. They blitz a lot, and a young quarterback like Tua Tagovailoa is going to struggle, I think, against the blitz. He might throw some interceptions. We've seen him throw some horrible picks. Like he looks great at times, and then he usually gets to the red zone, and then he just launches a terrible interception into the end zone. I feel like that's going to happen a lot. And as you said, the defense of Miami really struggles against the run. They weren't really tested against that in the past 3 games, except for Michael Carter, who got hurt in the third quarter. Against Houston doesn't run the ball well. And then the Ravens don't run the ball well with Devontae Freeman and Le'Veon Bell, who's no longer with the team even. So this is the best running back they faced in a while. So I feel like Carolina just really matches up super well with the Dolphins, and so I like the Panthers as long as they're not favored by 3 or more.
Yeah, I think that's the key there, keeping this at the 2 or the 2.5 range. I think. And Golden Goliath brings up a good point. The Panthers could be desperate, but I think that benefits them. I know we'll probably talk more about the Aurora Snowmo effect in the coming weeks, but the Panthers are in the thick of a really tough wild card race. And they really need a win. And if they can win this week, they'll know the result of the Saints game. If the Saints lose, the Panthers can move into second place in the NFC South with a victory, which is huge. And they know that this is a winnable game. So I think they'll come motivated for it. I'm not a huge Matt Rule guy. That's one of my drawbacks to this, why I won't be putting a ton of units on it. But I do think this is a good spot for them.
Yeah, agreed. And the Aurora Snowmo effect is teams tend to choke when they need to win a game, which I think you could argue right now, but this is only week 12. It's not like I feel like that really applies to the stretch run, the final 3 weeks of the season. So, even if the Panthers lose this game, they can still make the playoffs. They're barely out of it. They're a half game out. So they could lose and then win 2 games in a row and be back into the wild card spot. So,
right.
Okay. Moving on to the last of the early games, the Steelers at the Bengals. There's some interesting line movement here. This line opened -4.5. It went down to 3.5 with sharp action on Pittsburgh. Then went up to 4.5. It went down to 4, and now it's up to 4.5. I think the sharps are conflicted here. I think there are sharps who like the Bengals and the sharps who like the Steelers. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Steelers here. I'm not a big time fan of this, depending on the injury report. But if the Steelers get some of their key defensive players back, like Minkah Fitzpatrick, I think should be able to come back off the COVID list this week. If all goes well. And the TJ Watt logged a limited practice today, I think. So if you're getting both of these guys back, I think that's going to benefit them and keep this game close. This is an AFC North game. Those games tend to be close. Pittsburgh lost to Cincinnati by 14 earlier this season at home. They're going to want a measure of revenge here. And I think part of the issue here, too, is Cincinnati's coming off what looks like a big win over the Raiders, but they really only were winning by 3 late in that game. Then they pulled away because Derek Carr and the Raiders kept turning the ball over, and the Bengals ripped off some huge plays and touchdowns and then turned into 32-13. But it was not a blowout. That game was close for most of it. And the Raiders defense did a pretty good job of pressuring Joe Burrow and keeping him uncomfortable. I think if the Steelers have TJ Watt, they can do a little bit of the same thing. So I like them as long as we're getting we're getting the 4.5 here, because we're getting the key number 3 and 4 is much less of a key number, but it's still somewhat significant. And this feels like a field goal game to me. Maybe I'm wrong. The Steelers seem like the right side. They're kind of pesky. They know how to stay in games. And I know we talked about it. They shouldn't have been in the game against the Chargers at the end of last week. But I think that the Bengals offense is different than that of the Chargers, especially if the Steelers have a healthier defense. So I'm on the Steelers right now for 0 to 2 units. That's pending what their injury report looks like. If they're not getting any of the guys I mentioned, like TJ Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick back, then I might flip my pick to the Bengals. But I think if they're healthier, this is going to be a closer game, because the Steelers are playing better than they were last time they played the Bengals. So I think it'll be close.
I'm curious here. In your opinion, who's better between the Bengals and the Chargers?
That's a good question. I probably would say the Chargers. No, I would go the Bengals. The Bengals have a better defense. Chargers defense isn't good. And now I realize what you're saying, because this is lower than the spread was against the Chargers last week.
Yeah, that line was 6, and this is only 4.5. This feels too low to me. Now I know TJ Watt was out. I know Joe Hayden, Minkah Fitzpatrick, they're out, but the Chargers are missing players too. They had Joey Bosa, but they're missing some of their defensive linemen. I know they're not going to make that much of an impact spread wise as TJ Watt, and Watt makes a huge difference for sure. But I do think this line is too low. And, it wasn't that long ago that the Steelers should have lost to the Bears at home on Monday Night Football. And we know how bad the Bears are. And so I don't like the Steelers team at all. I feel like the notion that they keep this game close or keep games close comes from Chris Collinsworth, who kept saying that over and over again on Sunday Night Football. He's like, this Steelers team just doesn't go away. Well, I mean, if the opposing team gets a blocked punt and an interception popped up in the air, of course they're going to keep games close. They weren't close last time against the Bengals. And I know TJ Watt didn't play in that game. But I just think the Bengals are considerably better than the Steelers. The problem with the Steelers is their offensive line, which has been an issue all year. And the Bengals have the number 4 pressure defense in the NFL. And I think that's just such a big advantage to the Bengals. And the Steelers defense is not what it once was. It wasn't like last year it was elite. This year it's like it's not bad. It's like above average, maybe even good, but it's not elite either. They have problems. Like they allow big runs to running backs. Their cornerbacks aren't very good. And so like with their cornerbacks, like how do they defend Jamar Chase and T Higgins? Like I feel like the Bengals should be able to move the ball well enough. I know they had a misleading win against the Raiders, but I just think this is such a good matchup for the Bengals. So I'm going to be on Cincinnati. So it's our first disagreement, I guess.
It took us a while here. I get your point, though, because the more I think about it, like matchup-wise, I do think the Bengals are good. And Chris Collinsworth, he brainwashes me because I love his voice. Like, I just love hearing him talk. Like, he could be saying something, like, absolutely that I disagree with. He could be, like, up there being like, Mac Jones is terrible and shouldn't be. I'm like, yeah, Chris Collinsworth, keep speaking. So maybe he's brainwashing me here. I'll have to reassess, but I think I'm going to wait to see the injury report for this one. If TJ Watt plays, I still might like the Steelers in this one, but my unit count won't be as high because I think you make some good points about the Ravens.
Yeah, I could see, Chris Collinsworth does that. He has that effect. Like I could see maybe, the sun rises in the west, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, the sun rises in the west, yeah, okay. So I definitely agree with you on that. All right, so we're going to move on to the late afternoon slate. So the Chargers are at the Broncos. This line open up Chargers -2.5. It's been stuck at -2.5 despite tons of public bets on the Chargers. So who do you like in this game?
Can't say I'm surprised the public loves the Chargers. I wish this would move to +3 for the Broncos, but the sports books aren't going to let that happen. I like the Broncos here. This just seems like a bad spot for the Chargers. I mean, they're coming off of a close win against the Steelers. I know we talked about it. It shouldn't have been as close as it was, but that had to have been draining for them to basically blow the lead late and almost lose and have to make the comeback. And, we see what the Chargers have done this year, and they've made key mistakes late and key turnovers from Justin Herbert, who, he's been very good this year, and he had a great game against the Steelers. But there's his sophomore slump. I'll call it a slump because it's not like really a big one, but he's had those like key turnovers that have taken away scoring plays or set up scoring plays for the other team. And that's what he's going to have to cut down on moving forward. But I think the Broncos, they're going to be healthy coming out of the bye. Bradley Chubb might be back. I think this defense is going to look better. I think they're going to be well prepared for this one. And Denver's a tough place to play. I think people forget that because the Broncos, they're kind of a mid-tier team right now, and they don't have a great quarterback. I love Teddy Bridgewater, except when he tries to make tackles, and by tries, I mean doesn't try. But actually, I like that because I had the Eagles money line. Anyway, I digress. Right. But I think that the Broncos aren't getting enough love here. I think their coaching staff is solid. I think their whole team is solid. Their defense is going to be more together after this bye, this extra time to get healthy and prepare. And Teddy Bridgewater is great against the spread, too. I talk about this all the time, but he covers against the spread like 70% of the time. It's kind of insane. I could see the Broncos winning here and the Chargers just kind of having an upset moment that kind of reminds them of, hey, we still got some problems, especially their run defense is very, very bad. They're undersized. They're ranked last in the league. And then another shutdown of Najee Harris, but I don't think the Steelers' offensive line is as good as the Broncos. I know the Broncos have their own issues up front, but I think they find a way to get the job done with Gordon and Javonte Williams. So I'm going to be on the Broncos here for 1 to 3 units. It depends on if this line moves or if the books and sharps keep this at 2.5.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it moves to a healthy 3. Now, you can get +3 -120 right now in some sports books, but I don't know if you're going to get a +3 -110, unless something weird happens. So I'm on Denver with you. I like Denver a lot. I think this is a bad matchup for the Chargers scheme wise on both sides of the ball. With Justin Herbert, we talked about young quarterbacks struggling with pressure. Denver brings a lot of pressure. I know that they traded Von Miller, but like you said, they might get Bradley Chubb back. The Broncos are one of the teams that blitz heavily, and Justin Herbert's his dichotomy between non-blitz and versus blitz is pretty wild. Like he really struggles against the blitz. We saw it with the Ravens, and he was the Chargers were blown out in that game in Baltimore. Baltimore blitzes a lot, and Denver does too. So I think Justin Herbert's going to struggle a bit here. On the other side of the ball, as you said, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, I feel like are going to feast on this Charger defense that can't stop the run at all. And I wonder with the week off, I wonder if the Broncos are going to give Javonte Williams more touches because he breaks so many tackles. Like, he's so good. I think he's like second in the NFL in broken tackles, or at least he was heading into last week. And first was Jonathan Taylor. And yet, like, they're so close. And yet Taylor has way more carries this year than Javonte Williams. That just shows how good Williams has been when he's gotten the ball. So with the whole week off to watch film, like, maybe they give Williams more carries and that'll translate into good things for Denver. Like you said, like, I wish we can get +3 -110. That'd be awesome. I just don't see it happening, but maybe that's not happening for a reason. You know, if it goes to +3 -110, the sharps are going to hammer Denver. So, and I think the sports books know that. So they're loving this public money on the Chargers. So yeah, I'm with Denver for sure.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. The sports books do not want this to get to +3 so the sharps can just crush it. And the public has the inflated view of the Chargers right now. My dad's asked if there's any weather in Denver. It looks like it's going to be 66 degrees and partly cloudy. So yeah. I would say no. That's pretty good for this time of year. But I wish it would be a cold weather game because then that would be tough for Herbert. But yeah, Asante Samuel, I know he got hurt late against the Steelers, and that's one of the reasons that they were not nearly as good down the stretch, and the Steelers were able to make the comeback. So yeah, I think that'll be key to watch as well. But I'm going to be pretty excited about Denver here. I think that Teddy Bridgewater is just my guy against the spread, and he never fails me almost.
Yeah, Asante Samuel, that's a good point. He was out. He got a concussion, and that was his second concussion in such a short span. So they might keep him out this week, and that's big too because Denver, of course, has the talented receivers. So yeah, it's a great point to bring him up. All right, next game, the Vikings at the 49ers. This line has opened 3. It's remained at 3. It looks like the vig on the 49ers is rising, and this might get to -3.5 eventually. So with that in mind, who do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like the Vikings. I kind of think that this is priced properly, though, so I'm not really big on this. The Vikings have just kept games close and not in the way that Chris Collinsworth hypnotizes me into thinking with the Steelers. The Vikings have legitimately been in pretty much one-possession games every single game this year. And both of these teams are playing well right now. I know the 49ers are running the ball really well, and they just look like they're clicking on or firing on all cylinders there. But I think that the Vikings match up kind of well with them. I think they have a couple of weapons on the outside that can take advantage of the weaknesses that the 49ers have at corner. And it's not as bad as it was early in the season when they had all the stacked secondary injuries. But Justin Jefferson's coming along nicely, and Adam Thielen's always tough. And then adding Dalvin Cook to the mix, and it'll be they have enough weapons to keep pace with the 49ers in this one. My concern here is the Everson Griffin situation. That could seriously distract the Vikings. He was having some mental health trouble, and he had a kind of a standoff. Now, I don't want to call it a standoff, but he was in his house and wouldn't come out. And law enforcement and the Vikings psychologists were there trying to get him out and come out and get help. So they eventually got him out. It took a while, but I have a feeling that could distract the Vikings. So that might even be why the line's shifting a bit, but this is pretty evenly priced. So I'm not super interested in this. I've got the Vikings penciled in though for now because they've been pretty good to me lately. And I could also, see them rallying around like, hey, we should win this one for Everson and just, but I think the distraction's the bigger issue there.
Yeah, so I liked Minnesota a lot before the Griffin story broke, and now I'm not sure where to go with this. I'm still going to lean on Minnesota, but I had a bet plan on the website, and now I don't. It's going to be 0 units just because Minnesota could be distracted, like you said. And it's a shame. Hopefully, Everson Griffin recovers from what he's dealing with. It's a bad situation. But I think the Vikings match up well with the 49ers. The 49ers really, like I said, against the Jaguars, they attack the middle of the field with George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. And the Vikings defend the middle of the field very well. They're great against tight ends, great against receiving running backs. And so they match up well on that side of the ball. And then, as you said, with the 49ers cornerback situation against Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, just seems like the Vikings should be able to move the ball on the 49ers. So I like that matchup. And yet, despite what happened last week, with Minnesota beating Green Bay, this line, the advanced spread on this game was 49ers minus 2.5, and now it's 3. And so you're wondering like why the line move up? Like like if you told me ahead of last week that the Vikings would beat the Packers, that this line move up, I would have told you that you were crazy. Like why would the line move up when the Vikings beat the Packers? And yet it did. And I think it's because the 49ers look so great against Jacksonville. And it's like, okay, they beat Jacksonville, like big whoop, like who cares? So I like the line value we're getting with Minnesota. Almost every game they played this year has come down to the final 60 seconds. And so to get them with points, I think that's where you want to be. Like I said, though, with Griffin, it's a tough situation. I just don't know how they're going to react. And, so we're on the same wavelength there.
Yeah, I think what I'll be doing is I'm going to look at like any practice interviews that the guys give this week. Like if they rejected dealing with the whole Griffin situation, then I'm probably going to want to shy away from it. But if they start kind of saying like, hey, we hope he's okay, we love him, we're going to go out and win for him type deal. And I know that might be what they say anyway, but like if they use it as fuel like that, then I might like it more. But at the end of the day, all I care about right now when it comes to the Vikings is hopefully Everson Griffin's okay. He's one of those guys that the first draft that I watched like very in depth was back in 2010, I think, or that was the year he was drafted in the 4th round. I remember being like, why he keeps falling? Like he's got to get taken. Then The Vikings finally took him and he became a star. So I just hope he ends up being okay. I know he's dealt with mental health stuff in the past, so I'm sending my best to him, and good on the Vikings organization for taking care of him and doing everything really the right way. I think as soon as they saw the alarming signs, they went and tried to help him as quick as they could.
Yeah, 100% agree for sure. I hope he's okay. The final late afternoon game, Rams at the Packers. This line opened up Packers minus 1.5. Now the Rams are favored. The Rams are favored by 1. So who do you like in this big game?
Yeah, I like the Rams here. I think that the line movement made sense to me. I think it's related a little bit to the Packers losing to the Vikings. I don't think that was the full thing of it, but you just look at everything that stacks up here. You get Sean McVay off extra rest. Matthew Stafford's coming off of a bye week, should be more healthy. That back injury was bugging him, and their 2 consecutive embarrassing losses in prime time. So I think that motivates the Rams too, because they're going to look at it and be like, look at what we just put on tape before the bye. Like we were a mess. Like we got to show that we can compete with these top teams in the NFC. So I think they're going to use this as an opportunity. Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. should be ready to contribute more. People were I was complaining about people ripping Odell Beckham after 1 game last week. I think with the extra time, he should be more ingrained into the offense. It's still going to be a process. I still think Van Jefferson should be ahead of him on the depth chart for now, but they'll at least have better chemistry. So I think that's going to have an impact there. And, I know that Rodgers could come out pissed off enough after losing and just try to crush the Rams here, but he's also dealing with a toe injury. It's a broken toe. He claimed on the Pat McAfee show that he had COVID toe, and that sent everyone kind of into a frenzy of trying to figure out what that was. I think it ended up being he was messing with people, because that is an actual thing. But he was like, no, I actually hurt my toe while I had COVID while he was doing a workout. So his COVID toe thing was him fracturing his toe doing a workout. So anyway, that was his whole whirlwind last 24 hours of him doing whatever the heck he's doing. But I think that injury is enough against a good pass rush that will scare me away from betting the Packers. And I think that's part of why this line has moved. So I like the Rams to win here and bounce back. I know it's tough to win in Green Bay, but I'll be on the Rams for a unit, maybe 2. We'll see how their injury report's doing and how Sean McVay and the guys seem coming out of the bye.
I love Rodgers. He's such a great troll. I feel like he would, after his playing career is over, he's going to be like a great podcast host or something like that. Like he's going to have like a great show like McAfee. So yeah, we're on the same side, but like there's so many question marks in this game. Like is Matthew Stafford's back okay? Like, we assume it probably will be, and I would bet that it probably will be, but we just don't know for sure. Is Aaron Rodgers' toe going to be healthier this week? Probably not. So that's an issue. Like with Sean McVay coming off a bye, like that really benefits the Rams very well. And I wonder how the Packers are going to block the Rams front, because David Bakhtiari is not going to play. Elton Jenkins is going to be out. So they're down their top 2 left tackles. And so their offensive line is going to be really messed up trying to block Aaron Donald and Von Miller. Feels like the Rams coming off the bye are going to, not only situate Odell Beckham better, but like they're going to figure out how to use Von Miller even better on defense. So that's something else to look out for. So it's like Aaron Rodgers coming off a loss. I love betting elite quarterbacks coming off a loss, but he might be hurt. If he is hurt, then I love the Rams, but we just don't know if Stafford's healthy either. Or we don't know if Rodgers is going to suddenly feel 100%, come Sunday. Like that could happen as well. So I just don't know what to do here. I'm not going to bet this game, but if I had to, as Kenny would say, if someone pointed a gun in my head and forced me to bet $1 on the game, I would bet the Rams.
Yeah, they seem like the right side. I think Matthew Stafford's practice report is going to be very interesting this week, because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to practice a ton, but he didn't last week and he threw for 358 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, I don't think he does that well against this defense with less offensive line and more pressure, but he can still play well even with a broken toe. So, I understand the apprehension. We'll see how Stafford is. If he's like limited in practice all week, I'll probably shy away and not bet. But for now, if I think he's as healthy as I think he is, I'll be betting a unit, maybe 2.
Yeah, I just feel like there are better games to bet on the board this week.
Definitely.
Like if this were like a 4-game slate, like playoffs, like I'd probably think about maybe betting the Rams, but I feel like there are just better opportunities this week. Sunday night game, Browns at the Ravens. The line opened up Ravens -4.5. There's sharp action on Cleveland, bringing it down to 3.5. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is one I wrote that I could be convinced either way on. I think the Ravens are the better side, but the Browns are going to be motivated. They need a win to stay in that playoff hunt. Like if they lose, they're going to be, I think, 2.5 games back of the Ravens for the division lead. So they're going to have to do a wild card at that point. And we don't know how healthy the Ravens receiving core is going to be. Marquise Brown's questionable. Lamar, I think, is going to come back after being sick last week. So I think he'll have a good game. But the Browns, they have the injury to Baker Mayfield, but they're getting Jack Conklin back at tackle, and they're going to get Kareem Hunt back to complement Nick Chubb. So I think they can use the running game big time in this game against the Ravens and not have to make Mayfield do as much, because Mayfield has looked lousy throwing the ball. He's just so hurt. Like, I don't get why they're playing him. They should probably be starting Case Keenum. As much as it pains me to say that for all the Case Keenum truthers out there that came after me when he was in Washington, it was like, he's got to start. He's the best quarterback in the league. Like, that drove me nuts, but he's better than Baker Mayfield right now because Mayfield's not healthy. I think because Conklin and Hunt are coming back, I'm going to be on the Browns here. I've got it for 0 units right now. If you could tell I'm typing right now, it's because I had written both teams down. It was a literal last minute choice here. I think the Browns are the right side because I think their offense can operate with the running game. Lamar Jackson against this defense, if Marquise Brown doesn't play, might be difficult.
Yeah, I think the Sharps are reacting to the injury news with Conklin and Hunt, and then maybe they know something about Marquise Brown. That could be possible. So with all that in mind, I initially was going to be on Baltimore, but with all these injuries coming back, with all the Browns players coming back from injury, I think Cleveland is probably the right way to go. I don't think anyone wants to bet the Browns after what they saw last week. The Browns almost lost to the Lions. I actually wrote on the side, and this is maybe like my conspiracy theorist like coming out in me. But that game was so fishy with some of the holding penalties. Like, I watched that game twice, once live on TV with everyone else, and then I watched it again like later at night. Some of those holding penalties and like blocks in the back, I was like, Like I was trying to find them. I was like, where are they happening? Like I just don't see them. Like every time Chubb had like a 30-yard gain, be like holding on the offense. So that's to answer Joe's question, how the Browns only beat the Lions by 3. Some very fishy officiating. Plus, they had the flukely long run with Swift and also the interception by Mayfield. Mayfield was terrible in that game. But I think with a week to get better, I think he's going to be healthier. Maybe not 100%, but he's going to be healthier. And the Ravens have had trouble beating teams by, more than a field goal this year. Like they've played teams close for the most part. I know they've had some blowout wins, against the Chargers, for example. But for the most part, all their games are close. That's because their defense isn't as good as people think it is. They allow a lot of long runs, so that benefits Chubb. They allow, some big passing games to the receivers. And they struggle against tight ends. So I think Austin Hooper and David Njoku could have big games here. And so, yeah. So I'm on Cleveland with you. But then again, we might get some injury news that might make me change my mind.
It's funny too, because I had initially been like leaning on Baltimore. I wrote that, and then I saw the injury stuff move to Cleveland. So we are very much on the same wavelength right now, except for the Bengals game. And even that one, I'm not confident in my pick there.
That's funny. Yeah, we only have one disagreement, so that's pretty cool. We have another question from Joe. Stafford coming off a loss as well, in addition to Rodgers. Which team is more motivation to win, the Packers or Rams? Like for me personally, I don't see a motivational edge in this game. They're both coming off losses. This is for positioning in the playoffs. So I think it's pretty even.
Yeah, I would say if there's any edge, it would be slightly on the Rams, only because they came off back-to-back losses going into their bye. So, like, they've had time to stew over those a little bit and say, like, we were really lousy in those games. Whereas, the Packers lost to the Vikings, but they kind of had some slack to give up. Like, they've beat the Cardinals and stuff. The Rams haven't done that. And the Rams have to keep pace with the Cardinals. So I think that would weigh on them a bit. But I agree with you. It's not like a significant one. That's like one, if I had to pick, I'd say maybe the Rams a little bit more.
Yeah. Also, this is a playoff revenge game for the Rams too. So, you can factor that in, but I don't think it's not like the Packers are going to, be flat in this game. Like they're underdogs. Like they're going to try to win. So I really don't see that much of an edge. All right. Monday Night Football, the Seahawks at the Redskins. The Seahawks open up -2.5. all the way down to Redskins -1.5 now. So we've had a lot of movement here on Washington. Tons of public money on the Redskins. Seems like this is easy money with the Seahawks struggling recently. So who do you like in this game?
Yeah, this is not easy money for the public. I like the Seahawks a lot. I liked them last week, and they did not deliver against the Cardinals. And I think a lot of people are turned off by that. They're like, oh, Colt McCoy beat the Seahawks. Like, oh, Washington's won 2 games in a row. They beat Tampa Bay and they beat Carolina, who I think there are some people out there that still think like, oh, the Panthers are really good and they added Cam Newton. But, the Panthers are kind of mid-level. But look, Russell Wilson straight up off of a loss in his career is 36-11, including last week's game. He's not going to keep losing games. Eventually, he's going to break through and win. And this is like when he was supposed to be able to return, like first return from his finger injury. It's obvious he wasn't 100% the last 2 games throwing the ball. And frankly, the rest of his team didn't step up and help him. The Seahawks defense let Colt McCoy have whatever he wanted underneath in the game. So he completed like almost 80% of his passes. I think it was absurd. Like he had a phenomenal day. So that was very discouraging to watch. But even still, the Seahawks were close late. I think they were within 3. They had a chance to win. They just couldn't move the ball or really couldn't stop Colt McCoy and ended up losing by 10. I think they're going to be better off this time around. I think Wilson's going to have a better game. I know Washington's defense is pretty solid right now, but they're going to have trouble against Lockett and Metcalf. Those are just 2 really great receivers. And if Russell Wilson has as good of a game as I'm thinking he could, like it's going to be a shootout. And I don't know if Washington would keep pace with Seattle in that case. So I know that I know Joe just mentioned that it's motivational for Washington because they get right back in the playoff hunt if they win. But at the same time, like we see it a lot. Teams need to win or like think they have a win in the bag and they don't quite show up. So we're getting a ton of line value here. It's moved 4 points. I know it hasn't fully gone through any key numbers unless there was something on the advanced spread that was like Seahawks -3 or 3.5 or something. But I really, really like the Seahawks here. I have them for 3 to 4 units. They're going to bounce back. Pete Carroll was dejected after last week's loss, and I don't think he's the type of guy to quit on a team. I think the players will rally around him too. I don't think like they're going to just completely fold on the season. They think that they can still win games. They're going to eventually, and this is a good opportunity for them to do so.
Yeah, the advanced spread in this game was -3.5. So this has moved a lot since then. So definitely tons of value on Seattle. If even if you just go off that, like Seattle is a good play just because of that. And I love fading media overreactions. I've seen so many headlines saying, "Are the Seahawks done with Russell Wilson? Is the Russell Wilson era over in Seattle?" Now, maybe he goes somewhere after this year, but like he's still going to try to play hard. And I saw like this one crazy opinion by someone on Twitter saying, "I don't think Russell Wilson is going to play in this game because he's going to quit on this team." And because he's hurt and he's going to quit on this team. And I'm like that's the most insane like theory I've ever heard. Like Russell Wilson is like reminds me of the Black Knight from the Monty Python movies. Like you can cut off all of his limbs and like he'll still try to play. Like he's the ultimate gamer, and so he's going to try to bounce back off the 2 consecutive losses. And yeah, there's so much like FOMO betting on the Redskins because people saw the Seahawks lose to the Colt McCoy. Now, remember, what's the other team that Colt McCoy beat this year? The 49ers. And ever since that game against the loss to Colt McCoy, the Niners upset the Rams and they clobbered the Jaguars. So I feel like the Seahawks are going to bounce back. I think they're so undervalued right now. Getting them as an underdog against Washington. Look, the Redskins beat the Buccaneers and the Panthers, and people are impressed by that. And those are nice wins. I don't think the Buccaneers were 100% focused. It just seems like they were kind of going through the motions in that game. And the Panthers were a little overhyped with Cam Newton. And both those teams matched up poorly against Taylor Heineke, which sounds crazy. But Taylor Heineke is so good against the blitz. If you look at his splits, like non-blitz versus blitz, like he just carves up the blitz. Like he's so good against it. Seattle is one of the least blitzing teams in the NFL. So this is a tougher matchup for Heineke, especially if the Seahawks get their number 1 cornerback, DJ Reed. Like he missed last week's game. If he comes back, that makes Seattle even more formidable for him. And Seattle stops the run well. So they're going to contain Gibson. I think everything points to Seattle. There is some worry that Russell Wilson's not going to be near 100%. Like, yeah, that could hold them back. But we're still getting them as an underdog, and I think they're going to find some way to win this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned DJ Reed not playing, and then Trey Brown went out of that game, and Trey Brown had been playing very well for the Seahawks since coming off of injured reserve, but he tore his patellar tendon, I think, which sucks because that's a very hard injury to come back from. And he was playing so well outside. Their defense was significantly better with him. So being down him and DJ Reed, I think, really hurt against Colt McCoy. If DJ Reed does come back, that's at least going to give them some possibility of slowing down Terry McLaurin. That's not going to be easy, but I mean, I think they can get it done. Like you said, team. I think they'll be less likely to blitz here, more likely to play coverage and make him beat you. And Heineke can do that a bit, but he's just better under pressure. So we'll see what type of game plan Seattle brings.
Yeah. All right. Question here from Golden Goliath. Who do you guys like for the Super Bowl? All things so far. Personally, I would. I had Arizona versus Kansas City. I had Tampa Bay versus Kansas City in the beginning of the year, the rematch. I would still go that route, but I think either Tampa Bay or Arizona versus Kansas City. I know the Chiefs are, have lost some bad games this year, but I think they're going to go on a run to close out the year. So it's for me in the AFC, I think it's Chiefs or Bills. NFC, either Cardinals or Buccaneers.
Yeah, I had the Rams and the Chiefs to start the season. I'm going to stick with that. I think like a few weeks from now, I might be like, wow, I can't believe I stuck with the Rams at that point. But they have so much talent. If it can all come together right at the stretch run, kind of like what the Bucs did last year when they kind of gelled at the perfect time, caught fire, and went on to win the Super Bowl. I think the Rams will have a good shot. So I'm going to stick with them and the Chiefs. I think the Patriots, Joe mentioned Patriots Bucs would be a dream Super Bowl. I would love that. That would be top Super Bowl matchup, in my opinion. as a New England fan. But I think the Chiefs still find a way to get it done. I agree the Bills, if they put everything together, would be the top challenger still. It's really wide open on the AFC side, but that's why I think the Chiefs still get through. Like they can get to that cut above everyone else if Patrick Mahomes can, just make the efficient decisions.
Yeah, if the Patriots get to the Super Bowl, that would be the first time a rookie quarterback is playing in the Super Bowl. So it's bound to happen eventually, but the odds are against Mac Jones. If they play a bunch of teams that don't pressure the quarterback well, I think they can get there for sure. It's just the matchup dependent, I think, for him. All right, let's get to Survivor. This is kind of a mess, not for you because you had the Browns last week. So to read off for people listening, you have had the 49ers, Broncos, Cardinals, Bills, Patriots, Rams, Buccaneers, Bengals, Colts, Steelers, and Browns so far this year. So give you a second to think about who you want. I've gone with not good recently. The 49ers, Browns, Broncos, Bills, Vikings, Rams, Cardinals, Bengals. That's when it started falling apart. Then the Cowboys, Steelers, and last week the Titans losing to the Texans. I haven't had Baltimore yet. I'm going to take Baltimore over Cleveland. This is a tough week. I feel like maybe if I had the Bengals available, I would consider them. If I had the Cowboys available, I would consider them. Obviously, I think Dallas is the best play this week. But there aren't that many high favorites this week. Patriots are another one, but I think the Titans keep this game close. So so I'm going with Baltimore. I didn't know who to pick. Like I almost went with Seattle, even though they're an underdog, just because I like Seattle so much. So who do you like? Who do you have in Survivor?
Do I still have Dallas available? I think I do.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Dallas. I think the Raiders cover that game, but I don't think they win it outright. I don't think they win in Dallas on Thanksgiving. Plus, that would kind of protect me a little bit in case they don't cover and Dallas wins. I'd be happy with that. But yeah, this is one of the weeks that there are no double-digit favorites. Dallas -7.5 is the biggest spread of the week so far. That's going to make it really fun. I hate betting double-digit spreads. I much prefer the smaller ones. So that's going to make it more fun and potentially extremely frustrating if we get a lot of close games that I lose on. But always prefer that anyway.
Yeah, I was going through my confidence pool picks, which I have on the site, and this week is so hard. Like I had my number 12 team is like a 3-point favorite. It's like, oh man, this could be a bloodbath this week for confidence pools. So it's a tough week for that for sure. All right, my teaser of the week: Broncos +8.5, Seahawks +7.5. Like going through 3, 4, 6, and 7. I feel like Denver. The Chargers don't blow anyone out usually. So Denver is going to keep this game close. Teddy Bridgewater usually does that. And then Seattle +7.5, like Russell Wilson getting 7.5 or 7.5 points. Feels like a good side to be on. So that is my teaser.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I think that's the way to go for teasers this week because I could imagine both of these teams winning outright, but teasing them, you're going to keep both those teams should keep it within one possession. Like it would take a lot for either of them to lose by double digits.
Yeah, agreed. Joseph saying teaser alert: Dallas -1.5 and Bills in a pick'em. I like that less. I like Dallas -1.5 in a teaser. I wouldn't go Bills in a pick'em because you're not getting 7. I think the only way the math works out in a teaser to win in the long term is to get 3, 4, 6, and 7. You're not getting 7 in this Bills game. But that said, I think this is still a winner. I feel like the Bills are definitely going to win, and Dallas probably going to win. It wouldn't surprise me though if Dallas loses somehow to the Raiders, though. Especially if Lamb doesn't play. Like Dallas not having their the top 2 receivers. Granted, they get Tyron Smith back, but still, it's going to be tough for them to move the ball without their top 2 receivers. And the Raiders they're still a competitive team. I know they've lost a couple games recently in blowouts, but they can still compete. And they've some stars like Darren Waller, who was a great matchup against Dallas. Josh Jacobs should run the ball against Dallas. An upset there wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, I could definitely see it. I know I just said I don't think that's going to happen for survivor pool purposes, but it's something that I could envision happening if CeeDee Lamb's out. If Lamb plays, I don't think it happens, but I still think that's going to be a closer game than people think.
Yeah, and I totally agree with your survivor pick. Like if I had every team available, I would take Dallas. But that just goes to show how tough this week is to find an outright winner. Whereas like the team most likely to win could lose like easily. I think maybe not. Maybe easily is like the wrong word, but it's definitely in the realm of possibilities. Whereas like you had the Titans losing to the Texans last week. I think if you simulate that game 1,000 times, you're not going to get Texans winning too often. But if you simulate Raiders and Cowboys win like 1,000 times, you're going to get Raiders winning maybe like 25, 30% of the time, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Yeah. All right. That is it for this week. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will tweet my picks for Thanksgiving tomorrow, and I will also tweet my favorite picks on Sunday. I got them all wrong last week. Every pick I put on Twitter was wrong, so just be warned. I'm not on a good streak there right now. You can also head over to sportingnews.com. Check out all of our NFL stuff. I will be live blogging the Bills-Saints game tomorrow night. And we have all sorts of Thanksgiving content. So if you have any like questions about what Calvin Johnson is up to and anything else regarding the games, picks against the spread stuff, head on over to sportingnews.com. We have that. So yeah, just check out all that. And if you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter and I'm happy to answer them.
That's awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to your live blog because I feel like that third Thanksgiving game, I need anything I can get to like not fall asleep from the tryptophan from the turkey. So like especially during the commercials, like obviously not during the game, you're not gonna fall asleep, but like during the commercials. So I'll definitely be tuning into your live blog then. So I'm at walterfootball.com. We have tons of content like draft wise, updated mock draft this morning. Feels weird to say that it's not going to be updated the following morning, but our mock draft has been updated this morning. Charlie's mock draft is going to be updated Friday. He has his big board updated, his draft stock, tons of great content from Charlie as usual. Pick updates. We're going to have an update tomorrow morning and Saturday, Sunday, and also fantasy rankings if you're still alive in your fantasy league. So that is it for this week. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. Otherwise, I'll talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you guys then. And happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll talk to you later.
All right. Bye.